America just went through the most painful, divisive, expensive election on record. In many ways, America is ripped at the seams. Where do we go from here? There's one North Star that brings me peace, that brings me grounding, and brings me hope. And I'd like to talk about it here. My name is Tim. I am not American. I'm a Canadian who's lived and worked legally here in the United States for 7 years. And these days, for me, Austin, Texas is home. I'm inspired by the best parts of America. The people, the achievement, the opportunity is truly extraordinary. America has so much to be proud of. I'm also troubled by the darker parts of America. I hope that what I share here in this video can offer new hope, new possibilities, irrespective of your political party, irrespective of your position on any one particular cause or issue. A few days ago, I spent 4 hours in a deeply meaningful conversation with a friend of mine who was visiting Austin from New York. I didn't realize at the beginning of the conversation that my friend was a passionate, all-in Trump supporter and a passionate, all-out Harris critic. The stage was set. Two obvious paths. If I agreed with him wholeheartedly about Trump and Trump's victory, we could pile on and criticize and pulverize to a pulp Harris, reveling in the victory of the one and only Donald Trump. Or, if I disagreed with him, there was the possibility of maybe even ending our friendship. Some kind of acid-like disagreement, painful attacks going both ways. A conversation that would really leave us further apart rather than closer together. No closer to any kind of unity for our friendship, and certainly not for the country. Those were the two obvious paths, and we took neither. You see, earlier in the day, I'd had a spectacular conversation with one of my spiritual leaders. His name is Dr. David Wolfe. In that conversation, Dr. Wolfe reminded me about the power of deep listening. When he talks about deep listening, he does not just mean the sound waves of someone's voice hitting our tympanic membrane of our eardrum and hearing people. No, he means a deep listening, not just hearing, but listening. What does it mean to cross the bridge and go into the other person's world? Not to abandon ours, maybe not even to agree with or approve of theirs, but to have the courage to cross the bridge and walk around their world. One of the most powerful ways we can do that is through something called reflective listening, by simply mirroring back what we heard, both the content plus the emotion. And from there, being ready to ask some open-ended questions as well, to be curious as we walk around the other person's world. Listening is not just to hear someone, but listening is to understand them. So later in the day, my friend from New York landed in Austin, got in his rental car and came downtown to where I live, and that kicked off our conversation. In fact, we were sitting right here. Me on this couch, him on a chair just across the room. He shared many of his views passionately, right off the hop, about why he believes in Trump and why he vehemently feels that the mainstream media, mainstream research, the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris are all deeply, deeply troubled. I took it upon myself not to make him right or make him wrong, or to agree or disagree on any of his particular points or issues, but I made it my chief priority to simply understand his world. And what that looked like for 2 hours straight, the first half of our entire conversation, was me simply mirroring back what I heard him say to really understand his position. In fact, 90% of the time he was speaking, about 10% of the time I was speaking. And when I was speaking, I was just mirroring back and also asking some probing questions, some kind of open-ended questions to really walk around his world. And then something incredible happened at the halfway point of the conversation. Suddenly he started asking me about my perspective and what caused me to have my views. Did he mirror back? No. Did he ask me like this sublime list of open-ended questions? No. But the incredible thing is by the end of the conversation, we actually felt closer. In fact, on a couple different items that I made points about, he even said, you know what, maybe I have been taking the bait hook, line, and sinker from right-wing media. Now you see, the thing is, I was not trying to prove him of any points. I was not trying to make him right or wrong. I just wanted to understand. And it's pretty remarkable when that kind of listening and that kind of conversation happens, whether that's in politics or whether that's in conflict with a loved one, or that kind of conversation even happens in the workplace or with our family members or really anywhere. And the result was we ultimately felt more connected. You know, by the end of the conversation, we're giving each other big hugs. And despite the fact we could have gone down one of these two nuclear paths, we ended up feeling more connected by the end of it all. And so conscious listening is a part of the bigger picture. And I think this is the backbone of where we as a community, whether you want to think about that as you and me, or you know, you and the people in your home or your city or your business, your workplace, I think we can move towards a life of conscious living, which includes the conscious listening I've just described. And when I think about conscious living, to me, what it really means is what's the consciousness, what's the mindset, what's the attitude, where are we coming from in each moment of each day as we approach people and conversations, and heck, even as we approach our to-do list or we approach ourselves in the mirror at the beginning or the end of the day. You know, it's interesting. Is a knife good or bad? Well, Dr. Wolf shared with me the other day that a knife in the hand of a surgeon can save a life. That same knife in the hand of a murderer could end a life. So is it about the knife, or is it about the intent, the consciousness, the approach? And I think that tuning into that is what brings us great opportunity. And what's interesting is, you know, there's this quote from Albert Einstein, and he says, the consciousness that created the problem is not the consciousness that can solve it. And so if we, in our communities, again, at home or at work or in our cities or countries, if we continue to have the same consciousness to try and solve our persistent chronic problems, then we're doomed that the solution is going to be just as bad as the problem. And pretty soon that solution will become the new problem, and we will just continue to, at best, have the same level of dissatisfaction. At worst, the new solution could be worse than the problem that it was intended to solve. So I think at this point, it would make a ton of sense if you or someone you shared this video with had objections. I mean, I'm a white man, obviously. I'm in a nice place. I've got a shirt that says University of Alberta, in fact. I wouldn't blame you if you felt tempted to dismiss my story and my message here as some kind of cozy story of two business owners who had an interesting debate and ended up hugging it out like bros. I could see that as being a very possible, tempting, maybe even reasonable way to come away from what I'm sharing with you today. And I think also what's possible is to notice that even if I am privileged and even if I do have these certain advantages, that the idea of conscious living can still bring tremendous value, tremendous peace, tremendous healing and grounding in any relationship that we have. I think another objection could be, well, hey, Tim, again, white university educated man in a nice place who's a business owner, you mustn't be all that directly affected by what the new administration could do. Like, for example, hey, Tim, you're not a woman who wants to get an abortion but can't. Hey, Tim, you would be a lot more upset if your business was a business that depended on Chinese imports and suddenly there's these massive tariffs and now your business is at risk of going bankrupt. It's true. I am not directly impacted the way that many people will be, one way or the other, for better or for worse, for good or for bad, by the choices of the new administration. And I think that on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if the bottom level is food, clothes, shelter, mating, that a lot of folks are feeling very threatened, and perhaps they don't have the luxury to be higher up in Maslow's hierarchy of needs and to think about the bigger questions. And I sincerely hope that wherever I am at any given time, be it higher or lower on that same Maslow hierarchy of needs, that I can continue to bring to you, to this YouTube channel, to my communities, the message of conscious living. When I've had my own greatest hardships, including one period when I couldn't walk for 3 months, and when I've stared down the barrel of possible business failure many times, and when I've had my own deep fears of not being able to stay in America because my work visa path just didn't seem to be available, it actually has been conscious living that's really gotten me through those moments. And so through this YouTube channel, I hope to explore what it means to live in an ever more conscious way. Perhaps even tackle, like, what would I say to a fellow business owner if they were facing bankruptcy because of Chinese tariffs? Or what would I say to someone who wanted an abortion but couldn't get one? What would I say to someone who felt like their speech was being squashed? I don't have all those answers. And I'm also keen to explore that more and more. Because here's what I know. The consciousness that brought us here is not the consciousness that can help us kind of heal and get to a new place. So please do subscribe and join me in this conversation. And my sincere hope is that we can all get better together.